Mrs. Meth very much for her significant endeavors to create a program which I really believe from different angles of friendships and relationships will give us, Mr. Sheldon, a fuller picture of both how dear Sheldon was to so many, and certainly the void that he left. There's a beautiful essay in this week's Parsha with Moshe Feinstein regarding what is it that we contemplate when we think about the loss of a loved one. Rav Moshe writes, Hatzar, the pain that we feel is the loss of the chayo that during his lifetime, Hayoseh mitzvahs, he would mitzvahs, Volomei, he would study, U'melamei Torah, and he would teach Torah, U'mashpia la'achirim, and he would influence others. And as I saw this wording, this essay on Parsha, just perusing the Divrei Torah, I was stunned. I just felt like I'm looking at Sheldon. Lomei, Balame, Mashpia. In every area, he was a mitzvah machine. At work, in shul, and just from the personal perspective, here in shul, there's so many voids that he left that were scrambling. Anybody who has an email from him, it has become treasured currency. And we share with each other what the policy, how many minutes after sunset did we daven, on which day on the calendar, the many chavrusas that he had. Rav Moshe cites Rabbi Akiva was in mourning on the death of the great Rabbi Eliezer, and he stated the words, Harbe ma'os yishli, I have many coins, ve'ein shulchani lahartzosan, but I do not have a banker to whom to show the coins. Rabbi Akiva's way through a parable to share the fact that he has a lot of Torah, but he can't quite process it. The banker isn't here. I don't have whom to show them to be able to use them properly. And over the past weeks, many of us have felt that way. There were times we consulted Sheldon, whether it was in learning or in life questions. And he had a breadth of knowledge and of perspective that he was fond of sharing, did so casually and good-naturedly, and it's recognized and missed. The beauty of a great person's passing, if we can see it that way, is that his legacy continues, Be'ezras Hashem, to the extent that's possible, seamlessly. We increase in Torah the groups, the chavrusas, the family, and again, blending in a little bit of personal. We very much appreciate, Marcia, your being the leader of the family and being able to properly do something, nishmaso, to properly be able to pay tribute and recognize his greatness in our lives. To make the Siyum, we call upon Rabbi Kramer.
Just the road, begins Tzibor. Before I make the Siyum, I just want to speak a little bit maybe about the last Mishnah. I know I spoke already, said Hesped, but I just want to add a couple more points and again tie things into the last Mishnah. Also want to thank, not everybody who learned is here, people learned in Eretz Yisrael, Queens, all over the country really, and of course anybody who contributed, we're all part of this Siyum. It's a coming together of all the learning that everybody did culminates in Siyum, and it's, of course, everybody's contributions are sacred to us and very important for this. When I spoke at the Levaya, I spoke about some of the attributes of Shlomo HaMelech. Abba's name, Shlomo Zalman. So there's another thing, there are many things that Shlomo HaMelech accomplished, but Shlomo HaMelech wrote, we have 3 svarim of his. My personal favorite is Shir HaShirim. And it starts Shir HaShirim Asher LeShlomo. The Medrash says, who really wrote Shir HaShirim? And Rabbi Nosson says, Shir HaShirim Asher LeShlomo, Misha HaMelech Sha'ashalom Shalor. Says that's a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That Shir HaShirim, as written by Shlomo HaMelech, was a way of bringing a Kadosh Baruch Hu into this world. Kadosh Baruch Hu wrote it, Shlomo HaMelech wrote it with Ruach HaKodesh from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name into this world and bringing Shalom into this world is what the Medrash is communicating to us. And that's what Shir HaShirim is. I think the pshat is that Shir HaShirim is, it's a song of love, it's a mashal, and in some ways people misinterpret the mashal in a very coarse way, but it's taking the physical element of this world and being makadosh it, bringing the ruchnius into that very physical and coarse representation. And it's imbuing the Bria with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with ruchnius. And I think that's the pshat, that's what Shalom is. Shalom doesn't just mean peace, Shalom also means harmony, of bringing together of many different things. Bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu into this world in a way where we can see the ruchnius of this Gashmius world is also called Shalom. Many of you paid a Shiva call, saw the famous, now famous or infamous Columbia notebook father-in-law had, that Abba had, was his physics notes from one of his master's level courses in physics Columbia. And when we showed the notebook to his colleagues for work, we thought maybe they would interpret it, help us understand some of the gibberish. It wasn't actually gibberish for us. And then we also showed them that in the front cover of his secular notebook, he wrote the words Lashem Ha'aretz Noah, because that's what he was. Even everything is a Kadosh Baruch Hu's. Like there's this idea, Lashem Ha'aretz Noah. The whole world is a Kadosh Baruch Hu's, and the goal of a Musar Shmuz is to find a Kadosh Baruch Hu in the world. The goal of a Gemara Shir is also to find a Kadosh Baruch Hu in the physical world. And the goal of a physics class or a job in physics and science is to find a Kadosh Baruch Hu in this world. And his colleagues turned to us and they said, well, we've seen that before. We know what it is. And I don't think they quoted it in Hebrew, but they knew exactly what it was, because in his office, he also had that, and he had shown them, because his goal in this world was to bring what we're calling Shalom, to bring a Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Shlemus, the unity of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, that everything in this world can be used for the Ruchnius into this world. The last Mishnah ends with Shalom. The last Mishnah is a quote from Shim Kalafta. It says that a Kadosh Baruch Hu only found a kli that's machzik bracha in this world, only Shalom. That was the only kli he could find. And the Sfas Emes says, I'll say something from a Hasidic Pshat, Abba, but the Sfas Emes says that the kli here, Kadosh Baruch Hu, that he's talking about is the world. The Medrash, in Medrash Rabbah, but in Breish, it says, Vaychulu Shamayim Ba'aretz. It says, Vaychulu, the Medrash says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the world into his kli. The kli that's going to be machzik, kivyal, that can be machzik HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The world, finding HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, and that's the bracha of Shalom. Paraphrase of what he said, and there's a lot more of what he said, but we don't have the time for that. That's the same idea. This idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put himself in the Bria for us to find him, to find the Kedusha in the Bria. That's the idea, that's the Siyum of all of Mishnayos. And that's the idea, I think, something that was the life that Abba lived. So I'll read the last Mishnah and say the Hadrons. Amar Rabbi Shimon Chalafka Lomatza Kadosh Baruch Hu Kli Machzik Bracha L'Yisrael Ela Hashalom. Kadosh Baruch Hu did not find a kli, a vessel to contain bracha for Klal Yisrael, other than Shalom Shenemar Hashem Oiz Lama Yitain Hashem Yivarech Hashem Shalom. It says Hashem gave strength to his nation, and Hashem blessed his nation with Shalom. Hadron Allah Shita Sidri Mishnah, Hadron Chalan Daita Allah Shita Sidri Mishnah, Daita Chalan Sheminach Shita Sidri Mishnah, Lissis Sheminan, Lova Amhadin, Lova Amad Asa. Hadron Allah Shita Sidri Mishnah, Hadron Chalan Daita Allah Shita Sidri Mishnah, Daita Chalan Lissis Sheminach Shita Sidri Mishnah, Lissis Sheminan, Lova Amhadin, Lova Amad Asa. Hadron Allah Shita Sidri Mishnah, Hadron Chalan Daita Allah Shita Sidri Mishnah, Daita Chalan Lissis Sheminach Shita Sidri Mishnah, Lissis Sheminan, Lova Amhadin, Lova Amad Asa. Reb Madonai Linus Divrei Saras Chav Finfias Am Chav Yisrael Vinech Planer Nachm V'Tzatzenu 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 Am Yisrael Plan Yidei Shmach V'Lam Dei Sasach L'Shma V'Evayt Echad Mim Tzasach Kilulam Hili Hili Bisamim V'Kecha V'Levosh L'Lam L'Shchach V'Gracha Kivan Chisani V'Rochato Adonai Lamdinu V'Kecha Amin 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 Sela V'Ed Yirtzom L'Fnach Adonai Lamdinu L'Seinu Keshem Shazartan L'Snaim Seder Shita Sheder Mishra Kach Tazrin L'Haskos from Achem L'Snaim Amlum L'Lam L'Lishma V'Mitoch Archava L'Lishma V'Lassis L'Chem Zchot Divrei Sam V'Tersecha V'Yahava V'Schos Kol Tanaim V'Marayim Z'Dei Chachamim V'Zkarim V'Shita Sidri Mishnah V'Chol Asram Shel Madnu Yamud Lanu L'Reinu L'Zer Zarenu Sh'Lasam Sh'Torah Kashim Pinu Pi Zarenu V'Zer Zarenu Mi'akav Yad Olam V'Piyom Bonu Mikras Taso V'Salach Chatan V'Osach V'Shachacha Tishmar Lacha V'Kitzesa Hisis Yisetchacha Kivi Yubir Yimacha V'Yisud V'Chosh Neschaim Ar Em V'Yina V'Smala Oisha V'Chavei V'Nai Oiz V'Meitain V'Nai Reich V'Nai V'Shalom.
Amen.
When my wife and I first joined the White Oak community, so one of our introductions to the community was by Rebbitzin, Shetichya, and she told us that the Balei Tefillah of Yom Yorayim have a very special relationship. They're chavusas, they learn together, and they're bound not just in mission about Tefillah and Yom Yorayim, pleading the case for the community, the Klal Yisrael, but they're bound in life. A kidney donation. It gives new meaning to the expression from the Talmud, O chavrusa o mesusa. Give me a good friend. That's life itself. The relationship that Sheldon had with Aaron Yehuda Sussman was a tremendous one. It was such a nachas to watch them Shabbos afternoon developing each other's thoughts, gaining clarity in the Gemara, in Rashi, and Tosfos. It was almost like a co-host, the way they respected each other. There was discussion, of course, that we would be able to have Aaron Yehuda speak by the Levaya. The timing didn't quite work out. But it's a big kavod, tremendous relationship to be able to call on Aaron Yehuda at this time.
Marsha, the respected and esteemed members of my learning group, Kosher Rebbeim, and very, very dear friends. I've heard people say at Ovaya that they feel that a part of them is in the Aram Maze. And although, in my case, that is actually literally true, it speaks very little to what our relationship was all about. I want to thank Marcia very much for giving me this opportunity to address you, and I would like to mention that I don't think anyone really appreciates all the effort that Marcia put forward over the years as Sheldon's advocate, and all the extent that she went to keep him in good health. And I know that it was she who approached my wife, which led to us being bound together by this. And throughout the time, she always cared about him, and me too, actually. I want to tell you what I really lost when Sheldon passed away, and I will try my best to let you understand what it is in as brief a way as possible. In my mind, over the past 40 plus years, I've had the experience of participation in my Shabbos afternoon learning group to a wagon train, lumbering its way west. Many times during the whole journey, the wagon train stops for rest. They stay there for a while, they look over the area, and then they move on. We too, in our lifetime journey through the Talmud, move slowly through many complex dafim and sugyos, often lingering at wonderfully complex topics, to explore Rashi, Tosfos, and related halachic references to Mishnah Brura. At times we've spent weeks, even months, on one Tosfos, but always, after we felt that we understood the topic the best we could, we always move on. A particular poignant episode in the story of a wagon train is a stop at which one of the travelers passes away. There's great mourning, there's tears as the travelers pause to grieve. But then also, after much heartbreak, they ultimately break camp, and the journey continues. This vision came to my mind often in recent days as I tried to lead my group through the last sugya that Sheldon and I taught together. Our beloved leader, Sheldon, Shlomo Zalman ben Yitzchak Isaacs, Chrono Livracha, it was with a heavy heart and much longing that all the ideas that he had expressed in this sugya came rushing through my head. His synthesis of his vast scientific knowledge and insight into his love and fascination with Gemara. Our learning group began more than 4 decades ago, when we were young, recently out of school, and the atmosphere, and we were with young children. Many of our children weren't born yet. The atmosphere was intentionally made informal. The ability to make our own way through the Gemara for the first time. We were feeling our way. Made it exciting. We used to get together on Shabbos afternoon, sip Coke and munch on chips, learn Gemara, and enjoy the camaraderie of each other's company. Somewhere along the way in those years, the learning group became an institution. We built our social lives around it. We met in each other's homes. We celebrated Siyum together at family picnics. We spent all night, dozens of Shavuos nights, learning together and probing the depths of the Gemara. As was stated, Sheldon and I also shared one other big endeavor together that was very close to our hearts. The awesome responsibility and privilege of leading this holy congregation in the Yom Kippur davening. In these solemn moments between Musaf and Mincha, after I had davened for hours on my feet, and Sheldon was getting ready for his role in the Elah. It was at that time when we convened to the base medrash with our dear and precious friends and convened the learning group, relying on an opinion in the Shulchan Aruch that b'shas hatzchak it is permitted to learn without Coke and potato chips. As we matured, so did our learning. What first began as reading the Gemara with the help of the Siyum translation eventually morphed into a detailed study of Rashi and Tosfos and Mishnah Berurah. But we constantly strove to keep our group informed and friendly and easy for newcomers to just walk in and feel at home. One of our members, Ruben Pesach Margolis, once referred to our group as not only Coke and chips, and the name stuck. Not a typical name for a serious Gemara Chabura, but we wore with pride. A couple weeks after Sheldon's Batira, it was time to move on. For the first time in more than 42 years, I think I was teaching a new sugya without Sheldon. But I was in for a very big surprise. This new section of Gemara just happens to be one about which Sheldon had referred to many times during the year. He kept talking about it, even though we weren't learning it. And now I was finally meeting the Gemara face to face. As we made our way through this sugya, mere inches away from where I'm standing now, all the comments and elaborations that Sheldon had made about this sugya throughout the years came rushing through my mind. We were physically without Sheldon, but we were certainly not without Sheldon. I could clearly see and hear him from his empty seat at the learning table saying, "This is the Gemara I've been telling you about," and reveling with his infectious enthusiasm about its details and its import. Even more startling was my realization that this sugya has as one of its basic scriptural underpinnings the very pasuk which defines the Shabbos in which we learned it, Shabbos HaGadol. This was a paradigm that happened so many times during the years. When on a particular Shabbos we were learning a Gemara, and we found a reference to the Parsha of that week. And Sheldon and I would always look at each other and say, another coincidence. But of course it was tongue-in-cheek. Sheldon's oft-stated and vehemently held view of the world, there are no coincidences. So what was this new sugya? I'd like to share it in review and leave out as much technical detail as possible. For the past few years, our group has been studying in great detail the laws of Techum. What's Techum? In brief, Techum is an invisible barrier beyond which a person may not walk on Shabbos or Yontif. Not to be confused with Eruv, which is about carrying. This is an invisible barrier. If your home is in a city, the 2,000 amos, cubits, don't start till you reach the edge of the city. The section of the Gemara that we started asks the following question. Is the Techum above 10 amos? Tchum, above 10 amos. What does that mean? So the Gemara gives some examples. Let's say that you're near the edge of the Tchum, and there's a very narrow walkway, 10 amos, I'm sorry, it's 10 tfachim, 10 tfachim above the ground. Can you walk on that narrow walkway and leave the Tchum? Okay. What about someone who can jump, and he jumps so high he can get to 10 tfachim, and while airbound, he leaves the Tchum? Is that allowed? And Rashi quickly adds on this, you know, there are or were some people who were involved in such deep levels of Torah shebenisar that they could invoke the Shem Hashem and they could levitate themselves and go above the Tchum. Would they allow to do that on Shabbos? So the Gemara tends to bring lots of proofs showing that you can or you can't. This is the Gemara, of course. And then the Gemara brings the following fascinating case of a Nazir. What's a Nazir? A Nazir is a person who undertakes a solemn vow that he will abstain from wine and other things for a specific amount of time. Now, depending upon how the person states the vow, it could take place immediately, it could take place at some later time, or it could either be conditional, depending upon an event that may happen in the future. In this case, the person says, I will become a Nazir on the day that the Mashiach arrives. Now, he has put himself in a very awkward predicament because nobody really knows when the Mashiach is going to come. And since the Mashiach could come on any day, you have to start observing your vows just in case he comes that day. But the Gemara, the Mishnah actually cites a very fascinating exception. The Nazir or the potential Nazir can drink wine on Shabbos and Yom Tov. The Gemara wants to know why. Why indeed? Many answers are given to this question, but I would like to speak about two of them. The first answer that the Gemara gives is that the Mashiach is assumed to be coming down from heaven. And since he's levitating through the air, as he comes down, he'll be in the Tchum. And this is a proof that the Mashiach will not come on Shabbos. And this is a proof that you're not allowed to violate the Tchum even above 10 tefachim. Okay. Another answer came that the Gemara gives. We have a promise that the day before Mashiach comes, Eliyahu Hanavi will herald his arrival. Okay? And we also have another promise that Eliyahu will not come on Friday. Why is that? Because we, the Jewish people, are too busy preparing for Shabbos. And Eliyahu Hanavi will not disturb them. So the Nazir can rest assured on Shabbos that the Mashiach will not come. And what's the pasuk that promises this? I'm sending before you Eliyahu Hanavi before the great day of Hashem, the coming of the Mashiach. And of course, when we'll be learning this on Shabbos Hagadol. Okay. So all the various proofs and counter-arguments offered in Gemara are way beyond the scope here. But if you're interested, I refer you to Eruvin Daf Ben Gimel Amid Aleph, and following pages. Or better yet, you can join us right here every Friday, every Shabbos afternoon, an hour and a half before Mincha. There's a popular saying, the person should keep both feet on the ground and his eyes on the stars. This is a very powerful metaphor for the veracity and the relevance of Torah. And it explains why this passage is so meaningful as the one that represented the passage from learning with Sheldon in person to learn with his legacy. There perhaps is no more sugya in Gemara that is so more physical and deals with technical earthly things than Tachum. We're constantly measuring, fucking, Amos, measuring out the earth, taking medium-sized steps. It's all physical. And yet if we take those steps together with the Chachamim, we see that there are ramifications beyond physical. It is the point of connection between the physical and the spiritual. The point at which heaven meets the earth, or better, when the earth rises to meet and thereby becomes heavenly. We make reference to the coming of the Mashiach and the final redemption of our people and humankind. We learn that the path to the ultimate redemption passes through the Batei Medrash of Bnei Israel, wherever and whenever they are, where we can be found toiling day and night, with effort, with struggle, and with joy, to forge this eternal connection between us and our Creator. We follow this path through the long, dark, and frightening night. Until our meeting will come and announce, Rabbi Siyum, Yasman Kriyash Marshal Shachris. The new dawn, the dawn of our redemption is at hand. We continue our learning group without Sheldon's physical presence. It is very difficult and painful, but we have no other recourse. It's what we have to do and what we will do. We will be adding to our name the word Zichron Shlomo. Sheldon will always be part of our group, but we will continue to be called also not only Coke and Chips, as it captures the spirit of informality and camaraderie with which we began so many years ago when we were young, and with which we will always welcome all newcomers. Yehi Zichro Baruch.
Thank you very much, Yeshikach. We call upon Rabbi Menachem Winter, Rosh Kollel, and dear family friends.
Sheldon, Meth, daunting thing to talk about such a great person. Somebody that's meant so much to our family, to myself, so many decades, 40 years that I've known Sheldon. And just briefly, the characteristics that come to mind when I think of him is that a very unique mixture of genius and humility and dignity and simplicity. Reb Sheldon was a genius, we know that. He was a PhD physicist. I don't know all his titles. I know that he was very successful in his work. He was very high in the government, and you couldn't talk to him about anything. I'll just tell you just a quick story. When I was a child, there was a media report that the famous Star Wars, defense shield that Americans unveiled under Reagan. So it's something that frightened the Soviets very much. Some people that actually ended the Cold War. So there was a media report later that was rigged with the tests that they made, that there was a homing device on one of the missiles, and I asked Dr. Meth about that, if that was true. He said, no, that's false, it's a lie. And I said, would you know personally, would you know if they put a homing device on the missile? He said, yes, they couldn't do that with me. So Sheldon had every right to be very arrogant and conceited and haughty, but he had just really a deep sense of humility. This is something that I really learned when I came back from Eretz Yisrael. We started the Kollel, and it would have been very natural for him to relate to me like just a 5-year-old boy. The Menachem that he first met, but he always had so much a reverence and kavod, and he was a tremendous Mokir Rabbanan. He loved people that learned Torah, and he had deep respect. And he also had a certain dignity about himself. He carried himself, and that did not contradict at the same time a tremendous simplicity that he had. So these were just character traits that are very prominent in my mind. I think when Mrs. Meth asked me to speak, I think she mentioned an anecdote, and so it's hard to go through 40 years and to think of one anecdote. I thought of one, and the reason that I chose this, even though seemingly it seems very remarkable, is that it kind of bridges, my first, winter one here in Rito growing up as a child, between times I was 5 and 13. And then when I came back, went to Yeshiva, went to Eretz Yisrael, came back and started the Kollel in 2008. And so we started in 2008, and it was Elzman, it was the first Kiddush Levana, and we had a big chevra of Kollel rabbis, and I tried to orchestrate that with the help of the Kollel rabbis that we would, after being the Kaddish Levana, like they do in different communities, we would break out in song and dance, Tov Ma'oros. That was something that the shul had not done at that time. And we did that, we joined hands and we were singing. And I hear Sheldon say, almost like to himself, he says, finally. This is the whole story, but I don't remember everything everybody ever said for the last 10.5 years. But this resonated very deeply with me, and it embodies what Sheldon meant to me growing up. And that's that, growing up in Silver Spring and particularly White Oak, we didn't have a lot of experiences with, people that were from the Alter Heim, people from the Shtetl, grandparents that were from Europe. It's really remarkable to think about how few encounters that we had with people. Even though, let's say, my own family or grandparents, the Winters, were great leaders in their communities and dedicated to furthering Torah observance and Limud of Torah in America, they were born here. And Sheldon really, I think uniquely, kind of embodied that spirit of the shtetl, of that connection to the Heim. I remember when his parents would come, and I remember davening with his father, and he also carried himself with a tremendous dignity. And this was a tremendous Masorah that Sheldon carried with him, and a tam, and a reach of the people that we came from, and all the minhagim, and the mitzvahs, and that mysterious nefesh, that whole epic of Jewish experience. I think that Sheldon, represented and carried with himself. I remember at the Shiva and at the Levaya, it seemed to be a theme that Sheldon was in high school, he was going on to college, to an advanced program, and as Rebbeim were concerned, America at that time, time went off to college, you never saw him again, or common. But just hearing the stories, it seemed like, Sheldon was confident. He wasn't concerned about that, and that he was going to, disappear from being a Torah observant Jew. And in fact, that's what happened, that he remained firm. And I believe it was because it was inconceivable for him. He was part of that world that, went through, the horrors of the Holocaust and the fires of Europe. And he was part of that life of being strengthened, through the cauldron of his experiences, through his parents, and there was a certain firmness and commitment, and emunah, and bitachon that he carried with himself that was unshakable. And as a child, I think we were able to, to feel that and to relate to that and to be inspired by that. And it was something very unique and special that he brought to the shul. And I think as children of that Torah, we all kind of sensed one way or another, and were definitely edified and elevated by that. So it's a deep sadness that we memorialize of Sheldon, but at the same time we carry on how much what he represented here in the shul. Shul Ali for him.
Yeshua, thank you. We call upon Rabbi Bieberfeld.
Rabbi Ryan, all those assembled, I would just like to address for a moment to Rabban Yehuda, your moving words. The pasuk comes to mind where Yehuda, in trying to save the life of Binyamin, cries out to the viceroy at that time, Yosef, and he says, "How can you take away Yosef from me? After all, Yaakov Avinu and Binyamin are so dearly connected. V'nafsho kshura b'nafsho. His soul is bound in his soul." Upon which the Baal Turim responds and says, "Kshura is the gematria Torah." I'd like to say the exact same things that my brother-in-law said in just a little other type of words. Parshas Kedoshim begins with the command of Kedoshim Tihu, generally understood as Hashem exhorting us to be holy and sanctified. Either, as Rashi explains, to separate ourselves from arayos, all sins of an immoral nature, or as the Ramban, to avoid mosros, not to become overindulgent in permissible activities, so as not to become a novel Rishus Torah, a degenerate within the parameters of what's permitted by the Torah. Rather, we are to strive to reach lofty levels of precious, restraint, abstinence, and separation. There is as well another novel interpretation by one of the Rishonim, Rabbeinu Ephraim. Rabbeinu Ephraim references the pasuk in Parshas V'Haloscha, where Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu to speak Klal Yisrael, Vel ha'am tomar, hiskadeshu l'machar. The word hiskadeshu means prepare yourselves. We find similarly in Parshas Yisro, Hashem says to Moshe, Lech el ha'am v'kidashtam hayom machar. Ready the nation today and tomorrow. Zok Rabbeinu Ephraim, the command of Kedoshim Tihiyu is for us to be Mizumanim Tihiyu l'mitzvosav. We must constantly be in a state of preparedness, ever ready to perform the mitzvos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zatzal, in his Droshos, Dorash Moshe Dorash Chof, brings the Gemara in Shabbos, when Klal Yisrael proudly announced and preceded Naaseh before Nishma. A bas kol rang out and pronounced, Mi gila razel abonai. Raz Shamalachi Hashares Mishtamshin Bo. Who revealed the secret to my children? The secret that is used by no less than the Malachim themselves, the angels. As the Pasuk regarding the Malachim states, Baruch Hu Hashem Malachov, Gibore Koach, Osei Devoro, Lishma B'Kol Devoro. The Malachim, they too precede the Naaseh, the Mishma. Osei Devoro, they do his word, Lishma B'Kol Devoro, to listen to his word. Rav Moshe questions, what is this great secret of stating Naaseh before Nishma? Even among human beings, when one has confidence that someone loves them and wants only the best for them, he too would comfortably commit to following what he was told to do. Surely that level of confidence and comfort is not such a great chiddush, let alone a secret, when it comes to trusting our Creator Himself. Rav Moshe suggests that when saying Naaseh v'Nishma, Klal Yisrael was committing themselves to be constantly in a state of awaiting v'nishma, so that their entire lives are completely dedicated to following orders and directives of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In being vigilant and always on call to be told what to do by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says Rav Moshe, this makes us a doer all the time. We become a constant naaseh due to our readiness to be a nishma. He gives an example. Just as live-in help is hard to be available whenever they are needed, even if they may be reading a book on the couch, they're still working. They're on call, ready to serve whenever they are beckoned. So too an Eved Hashem is always on the job, ready constantly to respond to every desire and command of his Creator. That is the secret of the Malachim. A Malach may be sent on a mission once in many, many years, doing nothing up until that point. Yet the Malach is considered Osei Devoro, doing his word. Why? Because the Malach is always waiting, Lishma B'Kol Devoro, anticipating, awaiting, ever ready to listen and accept his next charge. This is the lofty level Klal Yisrael achieved at Matan Torah, transforming themselves into constant doers. They became Naaseh because of their readiness to be a constant Nishma. Rav Shlomo Zalman ben Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac, Zechrono Livracha, was a Naaseh v'Nishma man. Reb Sheldon was ready and became a real and full-fledged Talmud of my dear Shver, Zechrono Livracha. Whether in halacha, observing his avoda, and accepting all that he offered in his hashkafa. Reb Sheldon was ready to carry the torch of Mesorah that he received from his parents and to impart the world of Babiv and of Bensonhurst to his children and to those who want to know and learn about a bygone era. Reb Sheldon appreciated consistency, midos tovos, and an unwavering adherence to halacha, as well the Mesorah of our shul, and of course, to Minhagei Yisrael. Even when health issues arose, Reb Sheldon kept to his work schedule as much as possible. I remember walking home one Shabbos as Mrs. Meth tried to persuade Sheldon not to take a business trip and drive out to Ohio with all the necessary medical machines in it. But there was no convincing him otherwise. As Nachum mentioned at the Levaya, his dad was always ready, waiting at the table in anticipation of Shabbos. I recall Reb Sheldon always being from the Asar Rishonim, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. He was always ready with a good vart, a word of Torah, a way of bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu down into the world, and a thought connecting to the Borei Olam. And who can ever forget this past Rosh Hashanah, and above all, this past Yom Kippur, when Reb Shlomo Zalman ben Yitzchak Isaac led us in a tefillah beyond physical capacity. He led us through Shir Amunah, Bitachon, and Nisan. Reb Shlomo Zalman ben Yitzchak Isaac lived to become a kadosh in fulfillment with the mitzvah of kadoshim tiyu. by the standards of Rashi, by the standards of the Ramban, and as well by the standards of Rabbeinu Ephraim. Yehi Zichro Baruch.
Yeshua. Many relationships that a person has, each one typically can be represented by some sort of feeling or keyword description. And the relationship that Sheldon had with Brent Sharp was, at least to me, the observer, extremely unique. I watch people learning in the Beis Medrash. It's beautiful, it's precious, but somehow Sheldon and Brent learning together always brought a smile to my face. It's a relationship that's just plain sweet. Chazal tell us, Shechina Shuruya Beinayim. When you find two people learning in the Beis Medrash, Hashem's presence is there. We call about Brent.
Sheldon used to say, there are no such things as coincidence. And I have to say that when Marcia asked me to speak, I couldn't believe it. Why would she ask me to speak? I have no idea. But as Sheldon would say, there are no coincidences. So about 25 years ago, I was a knife and fork Jew looking for my roots, when I accidentally came upon a synagogue in the woods, walking down the road, Lockwood, walked up the hill, and there I was. I didn't really know where I was, but I came inside anyway. It was my first Shabbos. So I was introduced to Rabbi Winter, Senior, and after a while he asked me a lot of questions, where I came from, who my mother was, who my father was, and so forth and so on. And I told him, he showed me around, and he said, perhaps you want to learn. Oh, who doesn't want to learn? So I said, sure, I don't mind learning. He said, what do you want to teach me? He says, well, no. He says, but we'll have to find somebody for you to learn with. So, all right, go ahead, be my guest. So he said, well, I have a number of people in my corral. He said, some of them are really, really good. He said, some of them, I don't know. He says, I'm going to think about it. So he comes back and he says, we have somebody that you might get along with. He's a physicist. I said, oh, good, I'm glad of that. He said, perhaps you'd like to learn with him. Of course I'd like to learn with him. What is he going to teach me? Some math? Some physics? I was in college, I took physics, I got an E. I took it again, I got an E. I took it again, I got a D. So maybe he blew me up a little bit. So I said, sure. So he introduced me to Sheldon. Well, Sheldon shook my hand and he sits me down, he asks me a lot of questions, like where I was from, blah, blah, blah. So I told him all that. And he says, well, what do you want to learn? I said, what do you mean, what do I learn? What do you mean by that? I had no idea. He said, what do you want to learn? He said, do you want to learn Gemara, Talmud, this or that? I said, sure. So he brings out this big book, some size. So we sit down on one side of the table, I'm on the other side of the table. I can't believe this guy. He says, I like to mess with people a little bit. So I'm thinking, all right, so we'll get started. So he starts to read to me in Hebrew, I think, maybe. I at least didn't recognize what I was hearing. So I'm listening, and an hour goes by, and I'm thinking to myself, is this guy for real? He's reading me the Manhattan phone book. I don't know what in the world he's talking about. I said, slow down here, Sheldon. I said, what are we doing? So he continues to talk, and I don't remember exactly what he said. But in somewhere in our discussion, he mentioned that when men see women, they're not to gaze at them, to stare at them. So I said, this guy's unbelievable, So I said, what do you mean you're not supposed to stare at them, gaze at them? I said, if you saw a pretty woman in the mall, you wouldn't look at her? And he looked at me, and I could see that he was as confused as I was. He's thinking, what are you talking about? And he said, so I went on with that a little bit more. So I thought maybe I could mess with him a little bit more. I said, I'll play him an off-color joke. See how he responds to that. So, it wasn't too bad. So I tell him this joke, and he looked at me again, and he says to me, Brett, I think we're better than that. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa! I said, this guy's for real. So we began to learn, and he taught me a lot. Well, what did he teach me? Well, when I used to tell him, I would like to bring him up to date on things. So I would tell him about something that happened to a Jewish person who, it wasn't a good thing that they did. And he would remind me that we're all Jews. We don't have to judge everyone. Everyone is here. We're all in the same boat. So that was one of the first things that I recognized that this guy was the real thing. He was the real McCoy. You don't often find people like that. So, as I didn't know that I was going to be promoted to the head light bulb changer of Southeast Hebrew congregation. But as we moved along, I went to the Shabbos shir that Sheldon and Mr. Sussman had. I stayed with him for a long time, and they taught me a lot. I almost know the entire Manhattan phone book. So the other thing is about Sheldon is that I don't know whether Marcia knows it. I think she does because I've asked her a number of times. When Sheldon got sick, and I would ask him, how are you doing, Sheldon? He would say, fine. So I knew that he belonged to the Fine family, whoever they are. And it seems to be a large group of people in the shul. Whenever you ask them, how do you feel? It's fine. So I guess we're all in the same family. So just to sum up, I'd like to say that Sheldon taught me to be a good person, or try to be a good person. That was his message to me. I didn't always understand what he was saying. I didn't understand all the Hebrew or whatever language it was that he was speaking. But he was trying to tell me, Brent, shape up. You're a good person. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We call upon David Tuvia Kramer.
I'd like talk about a couple of things that Zadie taught me and my family, and that how we, as me and my cousins and my siblings, see Zadie. When I was little, I used to call Zadie. Zadie knows everything. He did. He taught me about science, about Torah. We learned Mishnayos, and some would say Shabbosos. And one of the last Shabbosos, the whole family was together with Zadie. It was my bar mitzvah. It was a very crazy Shabbos for me and her, my family. And I wasn't able to talk with a lot of people. After Mincha, I walked home with Zadie on my own and a couple other people there, but we were able to talk. And from or to yeshiva all the way to Lipiansky's house, talked about Rabbi Masech Hashem, the Galus Sabore, and we were able to talk for all those times. He taught me who knows what about volcanoes and space dust, but all to tie in to how mighty and powerful Hashem was. And throughout all Sheldon and the whole walk, I was able to learn so much, and that those lessons that he taught me just showed that even though many people see that those things were supernatural and out of the world and we can't even understand them, Zadie was able to bring those things and show the might of Hashem and how he directs the whole world. So those lessons that he could teach us and those memories, that he should be a zichos for Ulayim Nishmas.
Thank you. Marsha will share her own thoughts, but in addition, some thoughts that were sent in from people who are not here. Marsha.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Rabbi Ryan. Danny, Rabbi Kramer, Rabbi Bieber, Rabbi Winter, Rabbi Bieberfeld Bread, and David for some beautiful, beautiful perspectives that you shared about Sheldon from many, many, many different angles. And they were all so meaningful to all of us. And I know each of you had a special unique relationship with Sheldon. And he valued those relationships very, very much. So you heard from one of Sheldon's grandsons, and I'm going to read. There are several people who wanted to be here and couldn't be here, and I'm going to share three messages that they, well, two that they sent in, but one, the first one I'm going to read was by another one of his grandsons, Isaac Meth in Vegas, who I hope is watching the live stream right now. And this was actually during the shift. Isaac, who's 11 years old, was just sitting back there with his little pencil and paper, and he was just scribbling and scrolling. And that's like, I didn't even know what he was doing. And then it turns out he was writing all of his observations and listening to all the people and what they were talking about, and just writing down all his impressions of what they were talking about. He was also doing some beautiful drawings and pictures with captions. It was just amazing. So everything okay? Oh, so I after the shiv, I was left with all these papers of his writings and his pictures. So I just pulled one at random and I started reading it. I was like, wow, this is like perfect message to read. And I just have to show you, this is it. It's very, Isaac, I wish you would write bigger and darker. I'm going to try my best to read what you wrote. He writes, like a flower, a person blooms from a tiny bud to a bursting flower, petals and all. But like flower, the person will shrivel, weaken, and die. But a person, unlike the flower, will leave a lasting impression in the pages of history and our hearts. He's 11 years old. Zadie, dad, brother, husband, friend, whatever your connection to him, you can say that he was a special man. He did not need anything fancy, living off the words, if it works, it works. But when a mitzvah came and he ran and did it in the happiest, fastest, most beautiful way, he chased after his learning like his life depended on it. Hebrew and secular. Through the hardest times, like climbing through a window to get to class. By the way, he's referring to the era of the crazy 70s when Sheldon was in Columbia University and had to climb over to sit in. He was a loving man who would sit down with his grandchildren and talk about the most random things that they were interested in. He was the de facto grandfather of the family. Any question about science, that's a Zadie question, was always answered. And when you asked Zadie, the explanation would be so intricate, detailed, and thorough, I would need a stack of papers to write it down. I am smiling at the thought that he got to spend his last day on a Shabbos, a day he cherished and loved. In Hashem's merit, may we speedily in our days be reunited with Zadie in Yerushalayim to celebrate the coming of Mashiach. We love you, Zadie. Thank you, Isaac. The next message was from Barry Graham, who couldn't be here today, who also shared a very special relationship with Sheldon. And he writes, for nearly 15 years, I had the zechus of sitting behind Sheldon in shul. And what a zechus it was to see how seriously he took his davening and how well he knew the shul and hugim. Rabbi Ryan touched upon this, but one was from Barry Graham omitted was the fact that in some cases Sheldon's and hugim were different. And it was quite amazing to see how he knew the hugim even when they were different from him. His davening on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur was so inspiring with the crying that was felt. It meant a lot to me that after I got an for the other on Rosh Hashanah for the first time, that I felt was the foundation. Afterwards, he gave me more different advice, and it was quite amazing that I incorporated in the future. Getting the chizuk meant so much to me. His davening on Rosh Hashanah. One story I remember particularly was when I was visiting Denver after I walked into the east side kosher day, and after a while I noticed Sheldon sitting out the day to get wet, talking to some I debated with myself whether to get him or maybe try testing him because I knew that he was very private about his business for obvious reasons. In the end, he looked around and saw me and smiled. So I went over to say hello. I walked afterwards and I told hard to convey the depth and breadth of what we covered during our walks, at least as I experienced. But I can relate to a point Rabbi Ryan made last week during his Shir on Pirkei Avos, when he was talking about David HaMelech and Shmuel HaNavi and what can be accomplished in the base medrash in only one night. At first glance, you might assume it's much, but if you can mentally prepare yourself to really take in what the Bible has to say, then you can unlock a world of Torah, even in just one night. Now that I no longer have walks, I can look back and regard them as 20-minute increments that, when you add them together, is like one magical extended night in the Beis HaMikdash with the Gadol. Knowing that the week ahead was an opportunity to keep my antennae up on anything I was learning, to develop into a question for Sheldon, I felt like preparing Shabbos was a constant and enthralling activity. And Sheldon's attitude was no holds barred, no matter how wild or esoteric, uninformed or controversial. He always assured me that any question geared toward increasing Das Torah and therefore our relationship with Hashem was in bounds and encouraged. Wow, did I take advantage. He writes a lot, but this is, I just was very moved about reading it. We wasted no time. As soon as Sheldon's feet were in the footrests, it was blast off. Just a few examples. He's got a list, eight items. 1, was the mabul essentially a mikvah for the Meth? 2, is there a connection between the 3 and 4 prong shin on the Rosh Tefillin, Akedas Yitzchak, and the shofar that Mashiach will blow? 3, did Hashem speed up biological processes at the time of Bereshis so that the initial generation of plants and animals reached maturity quicker than their descendants? Or was the world created, quote unquote, old, out of the box? 4, to what extent did Yoshiyahu HaMelech have an obligation to listen to Yirmiyahu HaNavi's counsel to allow the Egyptian army to pass through? 5, what are all the ways we can interpret the identity of Yisrael in the Shema? 6, can we understand Bechira as the second most powerful force in the universe? 7, is there a machlokas tanaim on what kind of tree the Eitz Hadas was? Does this mean 3 of the 4 had a faulty Masorah, or could they have all been right? And number 8 is, how exactly does tefillah cross from the Gashmias to the Ruchnias realm? Sheldon would bring everything with his answers. Tanakh and Shas were at his fingertips, as if he had done nothing but learn Torah every day of his life. But it was also his chachma, his sharp wit and sweet humor, his sense of adventure, and his historical perspective that made answers so precious to me. He often invoked the idea that one of the questions the Beis Din in Olam HaEmes posed is, did you make good use of your time during your life? Although Sheldon would raise the question rhetorically, and out of his sincere humility, I never sensed that he was thinking about himself, I always felt that when the time came to him, and it should have come at 120, that he was one person as much as anyone who could say with confidence that indeed he had made wondrously good use of his life on earth through his masterful study and appreciation of Hashem's creations. Of all the things I valued in Sheldon, the greatest is his ability to seamlessly cross between the worlds of Torah and science, because he understood them at a madrega that put him in the league of a Rabbi Tendler or Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan. They are not separate entities, but symbiotic pathways, leading to the affirmation of Marav Masecha. It is folly and a tragedy of the modern world that surface understanding of science would lean one to turn away Torah and vice versa. And to have developed this close relationship with Sheldon was really a supercharged Amunah for me. To have a front row seat to Sheldon's disquisitions on the physical nature of the universe and his ability to process all of that understanding within a Torah framework was to witness the plain obviousness of Torah, Emes, and Hashem Echad. Sitting in the front row seat, as it were, was one of the greatest honors of my life. As long as I've been in White Oak and over so many health roller coaster rides, I can't imagine how many times I davened that Shlomo Zalman ben Rezel should have a refuah shalema. But I had such a funny relationship with my Yetzer Hara, because so special were these walks that I had to battle away the tendency to hope that he was well enough to go to shul with a wheelchair push, but not so well that he could walk on his own. Of course, the real me was able to brush away such selfishness and daven that the koach of his nefesh could be matched by his guf. So he'd be running marathons, not that he would. When we lose a loved one, there are different ways to process what specifically we have lost, depending on our unique relationship with this departed. For me, thinking about Sheldon, this is particularly painful because it's hard to wonder about all of the Torah I could have learned had he lived longer. And all the while, my learning would, God willing, have improved, as with my questions and capacity to understand the answers. But there's little use dwelling on that, and Sheldon, as much as anyone, would have rejected the premise of the sentiment. I know perfectly well, and seeing from Sheldon's example specifically, that real learning happens with Sfarim and Chavrusas and Shul, and really our time together during these walks was Oneh Shabbos, and taking delight in engrossing ourselves in the word of Torah, as we're commanded to do in Birkat Torah. But still, there are no shortages of questions that pop into my head that I wish I could lob over to Sheldon and listen raptly as we are waiting for the light on 29 to turn green. Absent that, I turn over to you collectively, who have come to honor Sheldon, the latest question that made me say, boy, I wish I could ask him. And it's one that occurred to me during the Reuven Shiur Alan Sussman, Sheldon's partner for 4 decades, and another Torah hero of mine, who is now conducting Shiur all on his own. Here it is. When Chazal instituted a given gezerah out of concern, the guy in the scenario would otherwise come to transgress a deraisa, who is the guy? In the Talmud, always to imagine the situation in terms of a guy, not the faceless collect klal. So let's call him Yankel, one of Sheldon's go-to names to illustrate a case. Here's my question. When Chazal were concerned that Yankel would transgress, who did they imagine Yankel to be? Was he learned or simple? Careless or meticulous? Did he have Yiras Shamayim or was he a Rasha? Of course, we all have to live in the Gezerah, so ultimately we are all Yankel. So how did Chazal determine when and how to institute a Gezerah? Were they aiming for the center to offer protection for the greatest number who needed defense while not overburdening those who didn't? Or are we really all Yankel, and like the 4 sons of the Seder, who fundamentally are individuals defined not as pure binaries, but have within them all the expressions of the Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov, and everything in between? Coming home from shul, I'd be able to get that question in by the time Sheldon made it to the top of the steps. And then once he was seated and ready to answer, make no mistake, it would be him taking me for a ride. I'll miss Sheldon for the rest of my life, and all I can do is feel nefama and strength in his expectation that I will keep asking and I will keep learning. Thank you for listening, and may Sheldon's neshama have an aliyah. Wow. I don't know if I have to continue, but I do want to add a few more thank you in addition to all the people who spoke tonight. As my son-in-law mentioned, there were so many people who signed up and to complete the Mishnayos, both within the Kehila and without, far and wide, all over the world. And I looked at the list. There was a digital sign-up, there was a paper sign-up, and the number of people who signed up was staggering. So thank you to all of you who participated in that. I do want to thank all the people who contributed to setting up this program today, starting with my daughter Miri, who arranged all the food and assembled a crew to help put it all out. Andy Jacobs and Aaron Huda Sussman, who worked on the AV and the live streaming. Thank you so much for, especially for helping include all, I hope all the people all over the world who are watching didn't have any technical difficulties. Yeah, did that go okay? And thank you so much for that. And I believe that it's going to be, if anybody missed it, they can watch the recording on the link that we sent out. And thank you, Loretta, and everybody else who helped Mary with the food. Dan Kellerman, who assembled a crew to set up the shul. And I'm sure I'm missing a lot of people, but I apologize for that. And I of course want to mention Rabbi Ryan. Thank you so much for your help and your guidance and your advice in not just this program, but in everything that's going down. I have to mention tremendous hakaras tov to our wonderful Tehillah for your support during Sheldon's illness, during the Shiva, and afterwards, all the meals, the hospitality, other assistance, the phone calls, all the love. I don't know how we could have gotten through this without you all, so thank you for that. And in addition to this Tehillah, all our friends and family, far and wide, all across the globe, thank you all for your tefillos and for your davening. Your tefillos gave Sheldon so much chizuk. It kept him going through many medical challenges over the years, and it was just amazing how he could deal with all his medical issues and come back time and time again. And it was in a large part due to knowing that you were dying. And I hope you all continue with all your tefillas for the many bolim who still need a refuah shalema, so please keep it up. And there are two people who aren't here physically, but I want to thank them because, and I know that they're watching from above, and that's Sheldon's parents, my in-laws, Zichronam Livracha. I want to thank them for passing on their survivor genes to Sheldon, for giving him all the strength to do his ishtadlos in addition to all your tefillos to help survive this challenge. Any challenge, whether it was physical or whether it was spiritual. And what was the source, the secret to the strength that they passed down to him? I could sum it up in one word, and all you have to do is look at the license plate that Sheldon chose for his Prius, bitachon. Sheldon's father, my father-in-law, Yitzchak Isaac Meth, Ben Amram Chaim, Zichronam Livracha, used to say, and Sheldon was very fond of quoting him, that der Eibishter führt die Welt. Hashem leads the world. And that's what's the essence of bitachon. And Sheldon internalized that kind of bitachon into everything he did, whether he was building fence systems for the government, whether he was looking at the constellations and describing them to his children and to his grandchildren, whether he was davening for the Amud, and, he just believed that this was all in Hashem's hands. And as mentioned, La Hashem Haaretz Umaloa, that's what his monogram in every single book that he, whether secular or religious. It was that bitachon combined with all your tefillos that gave him the strength to get through all the physical challenges, and it was that bitachon that got him through spiritual challenges like we would mention surviving being in Columbia University during crazy 70s. He got through that without wavering in his bitachon. He was able to survive working in a secular environment for well over 40 years without turning right or left. It was just who he was. Sheldon also internalized something that his mother used to say. Rose Greenapple, Meth, Razel Bashlomo Zalman, Zichronam Livracha, was so proud of the fact that She not only survived the Holocaust, but she rebuilt from the ashes of Auschwitz and went on to build what she called an empire. And she was always quoting my daughter-in-law Tamar, who once said how impressive it was that she was marrying to a family where all the children and grandchildren were Shomrei Torah Mitzvos. My mother-in-law was so proud of that she would just keep repeating that over and over again throughout her life. And listening to his parents, the telephone and empire building, Sheldon really took that to heart. And he made it his responsibility to carry on that legacy of both the Bitachon and of the need to carry on his ancestors' traditions and pass them on to his children. And for that, I'm very grateful personally, because I personally benefited from that. It was his essential Bitachon that enabled me to have such a beautiful, beautiful family. And finally, and most of all, I want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving me nearly 48 years together with Sheldon, during which we were able to raise a beautiful family and watch our children grow. And I doubt that we'll continue watching them walk in the paths of their ancestors. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope next time we meet, it will be under happier circumstances and to celebrate service.
Mishikoach, thank you everyone for joining. We invite everyone to make a bracha, the Ilui Nishmas, for Shlomo Zalman, Ben Rav Yitzchak Isaac, and Yisef Lo Baruch.